So for this iteration of
Jacob's Nintendo History Lessons,
it's actually going to be a two-part saga because there's just so much information and I really don't feel like cramming it all into just one video, so I figured splitting it up would be smarter in the aspect of YouTube videos. Okay, so the first part, which is obviously this video, is going to be over the creation of the Game & Watch games by Gunpei Yokoi, and do not judge my Japanese pronunciation, even though some of you already are. I know that's probably wrong. Anyway, the end of the saga is going to end up with how the Game Boy came to be, so let's get started. Originally, Yokoi worked various jobs at Nintendo, including a janitor, back whenever they were still producing playing cards, and this was during like the 1960s. I just know you were all dying to know that. I just thought I'd clarify. During some downtime, he messed around with machine parts and actually created an extendable arm toy, and well, I would buy that, because it actually turned out to be something pretty cool. Hiroshi Yamauchi, who I'm sure all of you guys have heard of by now, was the president at that time, and Yamauchi really wanted to start producing things other than playing cards, and he really started to look to the future beyond Nintendo, what they were doing at that time. So they started with this project, and they polished the toy up, and they ended up releasing it as the Ultra Hand, which is also part of the terrible game on Club Nintendo called Grill Off with Ultra Hand. And if you want to watch a video of me playing that, click the link in the description below because it's pretty bad. Yokoi also produced other big toys over the years, but eventually he went back to working on electronics, and he began to develop the toy called the Beam Gun, and it was used to replicate shooting on an actual gun. Did you guys guess that? If so, have a virtual cookie. Oh yeah, stare at the screen. I bet it looks so good. Anyway, around the time of the late 70s, we started to see a huge boom in the video game industry. Portable gaming was still a thing that had really not been widely spread or perfected yet, and Yokoi seemed to see this chance to hit it big time. He was like, oh my god, it's time to make some portable games. That's probably not what he sounded like at all, but I don't know what I'm doing. And LCD screens were cheap at that time, so these eventually made their way into the Game & Watch portables, and his stance on portable gaming is one that I always have cherished, as he had such a passion for it. You could tell this guy really just cared about the activity that is gaming. He made the point that the player cared more about fun gameplay than flashy technology. That is awesome. I wish more people felt that way today. Maybe that would help clean up the gaming industry a little bit. Anyway, in 1980, we saw the first wave of Game & Watch machines, and the three that released were Fire, Vermin, and Judge. And that's actually just part of the first wave. I'm pretty sure the very first game that was ever actually released was Ball, which is just so freaking addictive. Fire is personally one of my favorites, especially the GBA iteration of it, and that's what you're watching right now. The next year, Yokoi came out with Manhole, Octopus, and Turtle Bridge. Now, since these games didn't have complicated control schemes, they had worked relatively well on the handheld so far, but then he began to run into a problem with directional movement for a character, and simply putting a joystick on the handhelds would hinder its portability, so eventually he came up with the idea of the directional pad, or D-pad for short. Art abbreviations, fun. In 1982, we finally saw the release of this technology on the Game & Watch version of Donkey Kong. And I gotta say, it was pretty fancy at that time. And that's awesome, though, because this is something that really put a standard on every gaming controller in history ever since that happened. I mean, think about it. There is not one single gaming controller out there that doesn't have a directional pad on it. That's pretty awesome, if you ask me. A quick little fact, the name Game & Watch actually stems from the fact that there was a digital clock in each handheld, so you could always check the time if you wanted to, because believe it or not, this was actually a big deal because not everybody walked around with smartphones and tablets and anything else that makes me sound like an old man, even though I'm not old at all. Anyway, the Game & Watch series eventually branched out and created a whole slew of amazing, simple, and addictive games, and eventually they made collections of these old games and re-released them on the Game Boys over the years, and that's what we're going to get to in the next video of this two-part series of
Jacob's Nintendo History Lessons.
Thank you all for watching, and leave your comments below and let me know what you thought of the video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed it as well. All that stuff that sounds like every generic YouTuber's last line. And I will see you guys next time.